All right, just ran through the East. What about the West Conference? Western Conference, as some people would call it. We begin with the reigning and defending Western Conference champions. They are the Dallas Mavericks. Their total comes in at a whopping 49.5. They were one of the teams that I had undervalued going into this year. They won basically that same amount of games last year, and I think they are going to be significantly better this season. When you look at the moves that they made mid-season and how that turned things around for them, again, on both ends of the floor, this is still not going to be like the Rick Carlisle lockdown Pistons of the 2004. But this is going to be, I think, a team that can go out and play enough defense that this great offense is going to help. And I do think Klay Thompson makes a real difference with this team this year, and is just the spot-up shooter that we all know and love him to be. And I think he really grows into kind of this Ray Allen type of a spot. And so I do understand I am looking at all of this as best case scenario for this team. And you got best case scenario Kyrie last year. But I think even if either Kyrie gets hurt or there is some kind of a weird thing that only happens with Kyrie, I think that this ends up being still a really good basketball team. And so I gotta go. I gotta go with Dallas over the 49.5. And we are going to give that one a little bit of a circle for that particular play. The Denver Nuggets, they come in at 51.5. I think it's an under. I think that Jamal Murray looked so bad at the Olympics, and this team is, I think, going to spend this year figuring out which young players fit where. I don't think they're, like, again, I think that the years of gearing up for a Jokic MVP are done. I think the years of going out winning 60 games are done. I think that they are mainly focused on where do our young players fit and how can we kind of maximize this. And I think that's going to lead to some growing pains out in Denver. So I have them under 51.5. The Golden State Warriors at 43.5. This one, it's tough because obviously, things didn't go well last year, and now Klay is gone. I do think that they kind of recovered a little bit, but it is now up to the Kumingas, the Moody's, and the Pajemskis of the world to get this thing going. Another thing that I think you have to take into account, they got an MVP-level season from Steph Curry last year. And I'm not doubting that he can do it again. I'm just saying you got all of that, and you still barely squeaked in to the play-in, right? So I don't have high hopes for this team. It's not fun going against Steph Curry, so we're not going to click on this one by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's an under 43.5. The Houston Rockets out in the Southwest Division. Bet you didn't know that. Their total is at 43.5. I'm going over on this one, baby. I think that this was one of the teams we talked about when it was looking at what young players have a chance to take a couple steps this year. Houston has like 3 of them. And you have another year with Fred VanVleet and another year with Dylan Brooks and all these guys kind of locked in. Another year of Ime implementing his systems. I think that this team has a chance to really make some noise in the NBA's Western Conference. And so I think the Houston Rockets have a chance to flirt with 50 wins, quite frankly. Up next, it is going to be the LA Clippers. This is an easy under for me, folks. You have Kawhi Leonard, probably not ready for the start of the season. Who knows how much he's going to play at all this year. And so that leaves the keys to the car with James Harden and kind of nobody else. I hate this roster. I hate that it's going to be just James Harden iso ball for probably 45, 50 games of this year. I think they're going to be absolutely abysmal. And so I have Clippers under 37.5. Lakers 43.5. Again, I think it's under this. I think you got almost best case scenario last year. And maybe there is an upgrade from Darvin Ham to JJ Redick, but I don't think so. I don't think that it is going to be a substantial one anyway. I don't think they brought in anyone that really changes how you view this team at all. And then you have the Bronny thing kind of hanging over all of it as well. There's more ways this goes wrong than more ways that it's all of a sudden a 48-win team or anything like that. I just don't see it. Memphis, they were one of my overvalued teams in the offseason. I understand the excitement around Ja Morant and all of those guys coming back, and this team that was awesome a few years ago now getting a chance to be awesome again. But again, we are banking on the health, which already we had a scare in the preseason, and there's already a few different injury things going on with this group. And so while I do think that this is going to be an improved basketball team, I think that is a gigantic jump to assume from this team. So I'm going to go under 47.5 for Memphis. Minnesota at 52.5. I think that they got exactly what they needed from the Karl Anthony Towns trade. And so while you do kind of lower the talent level a little bit, I do think the fit is so much better. The one concern is definitely Julius Randle and how ball stoppy he can be, because Ant can kind of be a little bit of that as well sometimes. And so I do think you get a bit of a motivated Julius Randle coming out here, just launching threes and being the all NBA player he can be. I think Anthony Edwards, that Olympic experience, always seems to help some of these guys. And I think DiVincenzo really helps this bench unit and just kind of gives a little bit more structure to what they have throughout the lineup. So I think Minnesota, I think it's an over. I like this team a lot, and I think Anthony Edwards has a chance to really take a step up this year. The New Orleans Pelicans at 45.5. I go back and forth on this one so much because the Ingram thing is such a distraction, and it's such an awkward situation where you were basically like, yeah, he's going to be traded. And now it's opening night, and it's like, well, guess not. And so that can be something that hangs over. But also, Zion was basically healthy last year. He looks in shape, and he was everything we wanted Zion to be in that play-in game, dragging them close with the Lakers, and then he ends up getting hurt. And it's a bit of a bummer. But I genuinely think that superstar dominant player is still in there in Zion Williamson. And so even with all the distractions and even with an improved Western Conference, it's an over for me at 45.5 for New Orleans. For Oklahoma City, Hartenstein gets hurt for a little bit. Their total is at 56.5. I don't care. It is a high total. It is probably too high of a total. I'm taking it. This team could win 60 games easily. They are such a beautifully constructed team. Even with Hartenstein going out for a while, the addition of Caruso to help out with things defensively, I think is just fantastic. I think this team fits together so well when Hartenstein is back, and even when he's not, there's enough out there that they can still, it's just going to be a really good basketball team. And so I love over 56.5 for OKC. For the Phoenix Suns, their total is at 47.5. I like the over on this one. I think that this is going to be, I think, a bit of a year where they kind of put some things together. I think Booker having a really good Olympic experience, Kevin Durant still being him, and I actually think they kind of got the most out of what they could with limited cap space and everything in the offseason. So I think that they handled that situation really, really well. This is actually a pretty good basketball team with a lot of high-end talent at the top part of it. So I like Phoenix to go out and to get the job done. I think that they put on a really good regular season. Just kind of remind everyone how good a lot of their players are. Portland at 22.5. I think that this is one where, because you have Flag at the end of the rainbow where everything could be really exciting, I think that this is an opportunity now for Portland to maybe bottom out a little bit and get one more kick at it and then really start to grow next year. They have some pieces that I like, but I think it is going to be under 22.5. Toxic, I see the question. I'll get to it in just 1 second. Just going to wrap up the last three teams first, and then we'll get back to the Minnesota thing. Sacramento, 46.5. I had them as an undervalued team. I love this team this year. I think the addition of DeMar DeRozan gives them a little bit of half-court scoring that maybe they sometimes miss when things get bogged down against some of those more experienced teams. I think it allows them to have one of, if not two, of Fox, Sabonis, and DeRozan on the floor at basically all times, and I think it makes them a really, really scary team. So I love this Sacramento group. I have them well over at 46.5. San Antonio Spurs, it's an over for me at 36.5. I think that just bringing in Chris Paul to be that adult in the room and to get those entry passes to Wemby is going to unlock so much more of this offense. And Wemby, again, coming off of the Olympics, where he almost single-handedly, with maybe a bit of officiating help, led France to a gold medal against a dream team-esque team in the United States. I think he's brilliant, and I think that there is a real chance he wins MVP this year. I think he drags this team to probably close to 500. I have them over. Utah, 29.5. It's an under. For a couple of years, they've had really great starts to the season and then traded a bunch and fallen off. I don't think they mess around with a good start to the season this year. There are a couple talented players on this team. I don't see it. I really don't. I think the West has gotten quite a bit better, and I think that they are going to get their asses kicked on a pretty regular basis. And so I like getting Utah and only needing them to win 29 games and have it still be a win for me. Toxic in the chat asking, did Cat trade make Minnesota better, worse, or about the same? Talent-wise, I do think it made them worse. Like, I think NBA 2K overall rating, it makes them worse. But it makes the puzzle pieces fit a little bit better. And so I think long-term it makes them a better basketball team. So I am going to say better for this group. I think that you still have Naz Reid, who absolutely balled out with no Karl Anthony Towns there last year. You have Julius Randle, who is very motivated in the final year of his contract to go out and prove that he can still be an all-NBA type of a player and provide a real spark to this team on offense. And you have Dante DiVincenzo, who spent some pretty good stretches being the best player on the floor in a playoff series when the Knicks were playing the Sixers and it was both bench units out there. I think that the experience and, again, the structure that he can bring is really going to help that second unit out in Minnesota and maybe even help them close games. I would have to figure out how that roster would work, but I think that he is going to be such a kind of stabilizing force for this Minnesota team. So I have to say they get better with that. All right, now it is time to make a couple picks on this one. And so we begin Northwest Division winner, Oklahoma City, the clear favorite to win this one at minus 143. And yeah, I think we just kind of have to pencil in OKC as the 1 seed right now. Pacific Division winner, the Phoenix Suns are at plus 170. Sacramento plus 250. I'm not getting all the value I want out of that one, so I'm not going to make that play. I wish it was a little bit higher. I thought it was maybe a bit more of a bold call. So I think Phoenix still ends up as the division winner in the Pacific Division at plus 170. I just don't know if we're getting the value that we necessarily want for that, but I do think Phoenix does finish as the 2 seed. I think that it will be Minnesota as the 3. Denver finishes at, oh man, I have Denver finishing at the 4, but I don't know because we have to go to the Southwest. Dallas Mavericks plus 100 to win that division. Man, Houston Rockets at plus 650 is enough for me to actually roll with and to actually... That might be a bit of a sprinkle play here. Enough value to have me think. I just think that they could have a real big breakout type of a season. So I'm going to have them as the 5. I'm going to have Dallas as... God damn. Man, the West is tough. Because I'm talking all this shit about how great I think Sacramento's going to be. And now I have them in the play-in. That's where the West is this year. And then... I think I've got the 3 teams in the Northwest, right? OKC, Mini, and Denver. Am I missing anyone who needs? Yeah, after that it's Utah at plus 50,000 to win the division. So that's good. We've chopped off that division. That's great. We got to get New Orleans in here. So they're going to be my 8. We're going to have Memphis come in as the 9. And so now we have 1 spot left for San Antonio, Golden State, and the Lakers. Man, this is, you know what? I'm take committed on Wemby being the guy this year. I think Wemby does it. I think San Antonio gets into the play-in. Let's do it. Let's get crazy. Let's have some fun with it, shall we? So we're going to get San Antonio there in. So our play-in, we're going to have Sacramento move on. They'll beat New Orleans, so they'll be the 2 seed against Phoenix. We will have... Yeah, I think regardless of how the other play-in goes, New Orleans is getting in. So, again, I'm going super bold and having 1 through 8 in both. Oklahoma City against the New Orleans Pelicans. Again, I can talk all this about Zion and all this growth and everything like that. OKC is just kind of too perfect right now. So I will go with them. Phoenix against Sacramento. I think this is where I'm going to get my boldness for Sacramento. I'm going to say the Kings advance to the Western Conference semifinals with a victory there. Minnesota against Dallas. That is such a fun series again, but I do think, again, Dallas comes up with that victory. So I will have Dallas advancing there. And then Denver, I do think, beats Houston. So we get a semifinal of OKC, Denver, and Sacramento against Dallas. The Western Conference final would then be OKC versus, we will say, Dallas again. And I think OKC gets the job done. OKC versus Boston in the NBA Finals, and I just think Oklahoma City is built perfectly, and I love how they're constructed. Oklahoma City, my NBA champions for the year.